Awesome. So real quick before we begin, I want to acknowledge that we are on Ute, Dene, Paiute, Goshute, Shoshone tribal land. Despite centuries of colonial theft and violence, this is still Indigenous land, and it will always be Indigenous land. I want to also thank our sponsors for today, which is Project Rainbow, Salt Lake City, also Salt Lake City Office of Development, Utah Microloan Fund, Tracy Dean Financial, BW Productions, Q Salt Lake Magazine, Cuisine Unlimited, Rebirth Center, DM Corey Productions, Ogilvy Law, Visit Salt Lake, Parsons, Beal, and Latimer, Equality Utah, Safe Zone, Sugar House Coffee, and also our co-op space, which is where we're at today. So thank you everybody for sponsoring and coming and doing all that for us. Okay, so we have a fabulous group of people that are going to be speaking. I'm going to first introduce Samantha Taylor. She is, ever since escaping the closet herself, Samantha has dedicated her talents and time, abilities to breaking down barriers and making the world better for everyone in the LGBTQ+ chamber community. In her roles at the chamber, she is dedicated to increasing workplace diversity and creating business opportunities for those who identify as LGBTQ+. In her professional capacity, she works tirelessly within the court system to better protect members of our community. Samantha has over a decade of business ownership experience in the tech industry and now works as a freelance litigation support paralegal. She is actively involved in diversity and inclusion efforts, mental health advocacy, and suicide prevention. She's also a mother of 3 darling children, a community activist, writer, and businesswoman. She's also our chairwoman.
This way the mic actually gets up tall enough for me. Starting out, So I'd like to welcome everyone out to our 4th annual Economic Summit. We didn't know when we started this 4 years ago how it would turn out, and then we dealt with the pandemic in the middle, but have managed to keep it going every year unbroken since, what year is it? Since 2018. And to start off, I'd like to just see if he's in here. We had to make a last minute venue change. We had Liz and Shannon and Jorge, our events committee, because I'd just like to give a big shout out to them for being able to pivot with a week and a half to get us into this facility. I wanted to give you kind of a quick year in review for the chamber. We are continuing to grow. We picked up 33, and this is aggregate, new members this year, and 7 new partners, largely thanks to the efforts of our first full-time employee, which was Liz. Liz always runs off as soon as I the chamber grew to where we could no longer manage it with an all-volunteer staff. And so we are now up to a staff of 2 full-time employees and some contractors. Our other full-time employee is Newell in the back. And they are in charge of our Business Assist program that we work with Salt Lake County. So please talk to Newell. They will help you find resources. They will be speaking to us a little bit later about this, I believe, to help grow your small business and find access to your taxes paid for all sorts of grant funding and low interest loans. You paid for them, take advantage of them, and Newell will help you figure out how to do that. We also have a wonderful lineup today that they will take me through later, but we picked the topic this year of Lead Out Proud. We see it right now, our community is very much under attack by certain elements of society, politics, of certain individuals. And we need to build strong leaders within our community. And that's very much what our agenda today is focused on. We have Safe Zone, which, speaking of year in review, Safe Zone started out as a committee of the chamber and is now its own independent 501c3. They're going to come talk to us about bullying in the workplace and allyship. We will also hear from somebody, Amy Mickelson, about mental health and suicide employees. I will later this afternoon moderate a panel talking about transitioning at work to the good, the bad, and the ugly of what our panelists have experienced. And overall, the whole lineup is just helping us learn how to be better allies and better leaders within the community. And so I'm very excited for today. And helping me give our welcome this morning, we'll have Senator Derek Kitchen. For those of you who don't know Derek, he is currently the only LGBTQ+ person in elected state government, and he has served represented Salt Lake City in the Senate since 2018. He has focused his policy efforts on saving the Great Salt Lake, investing in affordable housing, and restorative justice efforts to realign the criminal justice system. Before being elected to his role in the Senate, Senator Kitchen was a member of the Salt Lake City Council representing District 4, where he concurrently serves as the chair of the Salt Lake City Redevelopment Authority. Outside of public service, Senator Kitchen owns and operates a restaurant in Salt Lake City called Lizzie's Kitchen, which I'm sure many of you have been to. It's excellent. Which has been nominated for a James Beard Award and has been featured on the Food Network. And before serving in elected office, Derek prevailed in his landmark lawsuit against the state of Utah, Kitchen v. Herbert 2013, which brought marriage equality to the 10th Circuit and created critical case law that led to the freedom to marry nationwide. And in my other role, I'm a paralegal. I cite to that case regularly. That was a huge monumental case moving equality forward for us in the state. So that deserves its own round of applause. Being a plaintiff in a lawsuit like that is incredibly stressful. You're exposed to, we're almost done. You're exposed to tons and tons of very personal attacks and very public personal attacks. And so we all of us who've been able to marry those we love owe Derek a debt of gratitude for that. Senator Kitchen serves as a member of the board of the Utah Museum of Contemporary Art. He received his bachelor's degree in political science from the University of Utah, and is an alum of the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. So I'll let Senator Kitchen take it from here. Oh, so this is Pompey. She's been on a month-long medical leave, so if she gets a little too friendly, that's why. She has forgotten some of her manners.
Well, thank you so much for that generous introduction. And it's really great to be with all of you this morning. So I'm proud to have so much of my story wrapped up in Utah's Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. In fact, all of the successes that were outlined in my bio there can be traced back to this organization. In fact, I got my start with the Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce of Utah about a decade ago, when I was just some punk 23-year-old kid slinging hummus at the farmer's market, trying to make a buck or two, you know, late nights in the kitchen, early mornings at Pioneer Park. It was a challenge and a slog, running on slim margins, but, you know, I felt empowered to be in business for myself. And I know many of you probably feel that way yourself, operating your businesses here in Utah. But I want to just talk a little bit about how I got involved there and what that meant for me. So when I was starting my business, I was approached by members of the board of the Chamber of Commerce here. They were looking for some young blood, some new people to get involved, and they invited myself and my business partner to join the board. And, you know, not having any board experience at that time, I reluctantly said, sure, let's do this. And the chamber back then was not as organized as this. Let me just leave it there. But we were really eager to get more queer people not only involved at the business level, but just to get more exposure of our businesses. And so my job when I joined the board of the Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce was to put together the third Thursday breakfast. Do we still do the third Thursday breakfast? Yeah, yes. So I remember going out to businesses, you know, trying to convince restaurants and other cafes and establishments to open up a little bit early on Thursday so that we could host a bunch of queer businesses. And, you know, that was a really exciting moment for me because through one of those morning breakfasts, I got acquainted with some advocates and organizers and some legal folks. And they had begun very early conversations about what a strategy might look like to bring same-sex marriage to the state of Utah. Now, keep in mind, this is 2012, 2013. We had just come off of Prop 8 in 2008, where Utahns were the primary source of financing for overturning same-sex marriage in California, right? So the response that I got time and time again as we began having deeper conversations was, Utah will be the last place on earth that same-sex marriage will come to. When hell freezes over, in fact, right? Well, you know, again, I told you I was a little bit of a punk back then, and maybe still am to some degree. We decided, you know what, this is the right thing to do, and in fact, the legal case that we are proposing has so much solid ground that we must win. And so, through the Chamber of Commerce, I was able to make connections to people that allowed me to take my business experience and build new legal experience and put something so pivotal out in the public that led to Utah being the very first state in the country to legalize same-sex marriage through the federal courts. And that led to critical case law that led to Obergefell in 2015. But Utah was not, in fact, the last place on earth to legalize same-sex marriage. And we have the Chamber, in many ways, to thank for facilitating a space that allowed that conversation to take place. So I just wanted to mention that, you know, the Chamber has so much potential for you. I don't know if you're involved in the legal world or this, you know, restaurant and food and beverage world like myself. Whatever your industry, I want you to take a look at the people sitting next to you, behind you, around you today in your meetings, and realize that these connections mean everything. Of course, you're here to promote yourself and to promote your business and to pick up a skill or two that might help you be more successful long term. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the connection. It comes down to the relationships. And we have so much potential just in this room with the 50 people that are here today. So don't ever discount the possibility sitting right next to you. So I didn't have any prepared remarks beyond that, but I just wanted to thank you for giving me 5 minutes or so to greet you this morning and take advantage of all that the agenda has to offer today, because there's a lot of potential packed into the agenda. And I want you to know that when it comes to business, you know, I have grown a lot in the last decade. You know, I've gone from, you know, late nights in the kitchen, early mornings at the farmer's market to now 3 restaurants here in Salt Lake City. And, you know, a lot can happen in 10 years. And so, you know, just keep your nose to the grind. And I want you to know that I'm your advocate. So if I can ever do anything for you, whether that's in the political space, the advocacy space, or on the business front, please feel free to reach out. And I'm going to leave a couple of my cards back at the desk here. So I just want you to see me not only as an ally and a friend and a member of the community, but somebody that's willing to go to bat for you. So appreciate it. Good luck today.
Thank you so much, Senator Kitchen. Okay, now I'm going to introduce our lovely Tracy Dean. She is a door opener, community engager, and passionate golfer. She's an insurance and financial advisor by trade and spends significant time championing rights for diversity, inclusion with the LGBTQ+ and other underserved communities. Tracy's journey began after nearly losing her life in a severe car accident. This caused her to take a deep introspective look at her own path and to make conscious change to help others. Tracy is so proud to be a first-generation college graduate, attaining her bachelor's degree in business with concentration in finance from Westminster College. Currently, she runs a successful firm, Tracy Dean Financial, in Salt Lake City here. In 2017, Tracy received the Ambassador of the Year Award for her times as a director with Utah Women's Networking Group, and is the proud recipient of a FABI Awards for the Best Financial Advisor in 2018 and 2019 from Q Salt Lake Magazine. She was also honored as the NGLCC Affiliate Chamber Leader of 2021. Tracy resides here in Mill Creek with her partner Sherry and their dog Lacey. Yeah, if you cannot find them at home, look for them like golfers.
That was the long bio, so I apologize you had to read all that, but welcome everyone. I'm also the chairwoman emeritus of the chamber. That just means I ran the chamber for a really long time and they let me stay and do the fun stuff. So I appreciate everyone's commitment to this meeting. Everyone on the board has put in countless hours to do this, and for all of you that's here today. So you may be wondering what Get Up and Move is and what I'm doing as a financial person standing up here. First, with the chamber, we like to do things differently. And second, Coach Nat from last year, if y'all were here at the meeting, she was unavailable today. So they said, hey, Tracy, will you do the Get Up and Move? I said, sure, no problem. But it is really important. I fully subscribe to in financial health and wealth and also our own personal fitness and health and getting up and moving in meetings is super important because it helps you with memory and concentration and focus. And so throughout the day, you guys get to do some fun events with me. First of all, I'd like to appreciate you guys coming today and you know, your most important asset, and this is not a ploy to get you to invest with me in any mutual funds, but your most important asset is your time, right? Would y'all agree? In Tony Robbins style, let's say that's all, and the count of three, say yes. 1, 2, 3, yes! Wait, I didn't see any Tony Robbins fans, because when you say yes in the Tony Robbins thing, it's like, yes! Okay. All right, you guys are just warming up, but we're gonna need to get some more action around here. Yeah, but that's coming, Liz. Do you want to read? I love you. We always check each other in these meetings. They're like, did you do this? Yes. Okay. Or did you do this? No, will you? Sure. At 10:30 last night. Just joking. No, seriously though, if you guys need to get up and stand, like during today's event, like, do that. If you have an email or if you're feeling tired or whatever, just go out the door, and it's such a beautiful day. I encourage you guys just to play full out here today and just make sure that you're focused on our speakers. I also love looking at all of your wonderful faces, and I know our speakers do as well, so thank you for that. Yes, so now's the time, as per Liz. Let's everyone stand up if you're able. So everyone get up. Or sit up straight. All the people online, do this at home. And what we're going to do is do arm circles. Where's the stress? Like the neck. Yeah, I'm not an exercise person, but you know it. You got it. We got it. I do VR workouts. He said like do this or whatever. Yeah, like that or something. Do arm circles. Up and down. Okay, and then next I want you to turn to a neighbor or someone or run to someone you want to say hi to. High five them and say, I am awesome, I look pretty, and I am happy to be here. Yay! And online, you know your dog. Ew. That's how you get everyone's attention back. I see Mindy already halfway up the thing, like, oh, hey, friends, which is fine. I love that about you. I totally love that. See? Yep, there we go. I should have said, everyone but Mindy, get out of your seat. Anyway, you can all sit down. The other Tony Robbins verbiage is, get in a peak state. He says that a lot. I'm just telling you the Tony Robbins because I don't want to use his terminology and say that was not Tracy's own words because it's not, but like get in a peak state, and we'll do that throughout the day today. So just remember that also when you're working. It's fun to the Pomodoro. Oh, that's my other get up and go. I'll talk about the Pomodoro method and another get up and go. So anyway, also I wanted to shout out to Michael Aaron is in the back of the room. Derek Kitchen just mentioned the first of the chamber, and I wanted to just will you stand, please, Mr. Aaron? Stop it. I know you're taller than that. He and I have been conference husbands at the NGLCC meetings, husband and wife, I guess, or whatever. I don't know those terms anymore. Husband and wife. Spouses, thank you. Michael Aaron is really the crux of what is behind the chamber. He started Q Business Alliance a very long time ago, 2012, I think. We often, when we were drunk, we were trying to figure out the date, but we couldn't figure it out. Anyways, just call it 2012. Oh yeah, because it's our 10-year anniversary. Thanks, Liz. But hats off to you, man. You got this all started, and we just appreciate you so much. So thank you. We can't hear you. Thanks. And our MC of the day, Mr. Shannon White. It's also his birthday, so happy birthday.
Thanks, guys. Okay, so we're going to go into our next speaker. There's two of them. And Ben Clapp and Doug Burton are going to come up and talk about cybersecurity. Real quick, I'm going to introduce both of them. Ben grew up in a small town in Montana, moved to a large mountain town in Bozeman, where he got his bachelor's at Montana State University. Ben currently resides in an even larger mountain town, Salt Lake City, with his wife, Courtney. Ben enjoys giving back to the community and is always looking for ways to enrich the lives around him. He's a former foster parent, a nonprofit board member, and mentor to young leaders. Professionally, Ben has a decade of experience in developing organizational structures, teams, and workflows. He has engaged in the process of recruiting, developing, and mentoring teams of leaders. After transitioning to the technology sector from the higher education context, Ben has applied his skills to developing a healthy cybersecurity culture, optimizing security structures, leading a team of security technicians, and developing solutions to help clients with their compliance needs. He is currently the compliance advisor and manager at Wasatch IT, and locally owned managed service provider that serves the IT department for over 500 organizations. And then Doug Burton is the co-founder and chief creative officer for Saltworks, a website development and digital marketing company. Doug has more than 2 decades of experience in developing and managing websites and content for digital platforms. Doug has developed marketing content for some of the world's top brands, including Quaker Oatmeal, Kroger, Dove Soap, Huggies Diapers, and Clorox. So we'll have both of you come on up.
Let's see, got my wireless on. Hello, here. Yeah, okay, there we go. All right, so I'm gonna ditch this mic here for just a second. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming out. By a show of hands, who here has a website that you either manage or you are in charge of in some way for your company? Raise your hand. Okay, good. All right, now put your hands back down. Who here has heard about the security threats and cybersecurity attacks, at least maybe one over the past month? Who's heard about some attack, security breach, data leak? Okay, hands back down. And who here spends at least an hour a week or more learning about cybersecurity and trying to improve cybersecurity for your website? Good. Are you in IT? Okay. And Ben does too. Ben Clapp with Wasatch IT. That makes sense. But it makes sense that as small business owners, none of us have the time, unless you're in the business, to invest that much time in cybersecurity for your website or for your business. However, it's very, very important, and we don't spend enough time or invest enough money in it. Former defense expert Richard Clark once said that if you spend more on coffee per day than you spend on cybersecurity, you're going to get hacked. And that's true. It's not a matter of will you get hacked, it's a matter of when will you get hacked. So what we're going to do today is talk a little bit about cybersecurity for small businesses and essentially protecting your most important digital asset. So you probably all have a Google My Business profile, which is another great important business asset, but your website is probably your single most important digital touch point for people to find you and for people to be able to connect with you. So if that gets hacked, we're going to talk a little bit about the costs of that and how devastating that could be to your business. Then I'm going to give you 8 simple tips to help you improve your security for your business and for your website specifically. So over the years, my company, we've helped Hundreds of brands and small companies especially improve the security on their website. And we built and manage hundreds of websites for small businesses around the country. This is the most common approach to cybersecurity for small businesses. And you know, with the time that it takes, it's not surprising. So there's really two kind of schools of thought when it comes to small business and cybersecurity. One is, we don't think that it can happen to us, right? Because while cyber attacks only happen to big companies, they're not, why would a hacker want to target my small business? You know, I'm a two-person business or a one-man or one-person business, one-woman business. But actually the fact is that 70% of cyber attacks target small businesses. So I want to take a quick survey. How often do we think a cyber attack is attempted on the average small business website? Raise your hands again. If you think it's 5 to 10 times per year, raise your hand. 5 to 10 times per month. Okay, about 7 people. 5 to 10 times per week. Okay, and more. Okay, so the actual answer is between 10 and 100 times a day. And these are attacks from all over the world. You often don't know about these attacks because your hosting provider or security software that you have on your website is preventing these attacks. A lot of hosting companies help you with that. Here are the most common cyber threats. So we've got a brute force attack, which is hackers attempting to crack your password by trying every possible combination of letters, numbers, and symbols. With WordPress sites, the default username for a WordPress site used to be admin, all lowercase admin. A lot of people didn't change that password to, or that username to something else, which essentially meant that people were giving hackers 1/2 of their password combination. So it's really important that you have a unique username, as unique as possible, and a unique password. The default is no longer admin for WordPress site password usernames. Luckily, DDoS attacks is an attempt by attackers to flood your website with fake traffic. That doesn't happen a ton to small businesses, but it can. I have seen it happen. If you get a lot of, if you're on television, if you were on national television for something, get a lot of exposure, that would not be uncommon for that to happen. And it's basically just overloading your server. Malware, that's where attackers try to get access to your website, damage systems, steal data from your contact forms from people that have tried to reach out to you. Phishing, hackers breaking into your website and creating malicious pages to try to steal data from website visitors. So the idea there is they're going to try to harvest data that they can either use in other data breaches or hacking attempts or steal data. So what's the cost of this each year? Well, the average cost of a cyber attack to a small business, according to Hiscox Cyber Readiness, $25,000. So that includes, you know, hiring someone to help you clean up all of the infected and malicious files, potential liability to your business by having data leaked, your customers' data leaked, any kind of preventative measures you have to take to then secure your website. And the average cost of a cyber attack, broader cyber attack on a small business, according to Kaspersky, is even higher, $105,000. Now, here's one that Michael Aaron might be able to tell us about: the average amount of time to restore a website after being hacked. 7.5 days is the average amount of time.
Michael Aaron failed that.
I mean, depending on whether or not your files are backed up and where they're backed up to, if you have offsite backups, it can be better, but depending where they're backed up to, it can take a long time. The other negative effect of getting hacked is lower search rankings. So 45% of owners of hacked websites and their search traffic never returns to normal, even after cleaning. This is 6 months, 9 months, a year after the hack and after they've cleaned up the sites. It can forever damage your search rankings. And then, of course, there's lost trust and reputation. 1 in 4 people say they've stopped doing business with companies who reported being hacked. And then the liability, 9 in 10 people agree that companies are financially liable to their customers after a data breach. This is the scariest one of all to me. 60% of hacked businesses, small and medium-sized businesses, go out of business 6 months after being hacked. That's the one that really stops you in your tracks. Here's the good news. I have 8 security tips, essential tips for your website that should, if you apply them, help you secure and fortify your website. And of course, Ben and I are available that we can talk to you about this after this meeting and during lunch. We'll be here. I think you're staying for lunch, right? So we'll definitely be here to talk to you about any of these things. So the first tip, you probably have heard this many, many times, but observe good password hygiene. So it means using strong passwords, and Ben's going to talk a little bit more about what is a strong password. Here's some passwords that are cute passwords, but not strong. But I do like the creativity of these passwords. I mean, that's a good idea, right? You shot that password for my Python fans. I like that one a lot. For you Game of Thrones fans, Harry Potter fans. That's my, I think it's my router actually, double wagons. And then that's probably my favorite. That's, anybody who can remember how to move can appreciate that. So obviously, what's wrong with these passwords? They don't include a number, they don't include a mixed case character. They're actually phrases, which there's a list of phrases, including things like Mustang 123, password 123, things like that I've seen clients actually use. I actually had a client not too long ago use let me in 123 as their password. That's one of the first passwords that hackers are going to try. And it's not just hackers just typing in passwords randomly. They have a computer, basically a server farm that's going to sit and run passwords, and they could run literally hundreds of thousands of passwords. If you don't throttle it on your website, they can run that many in an hour. So they can just continually barrage your website with password defense. So one of the best ways to secure your password is to use a password manager. LastPass is the one that I use. 1Password is one that is very popular as well. One of the things I like about LastPass, and I've got the LastPass app on my phone, is you can do 2-factor authentication. So not only to log into one of my websites, you have to put in the username and password, but you have to retrieve the code from this LastPass app on the phone, and the code changes about every 26 seconds. So somebody would have to not only have my passwords, which by the way are not stored on my phone, and also have my authentication app that is unique to my phone to be able to get in that way. Never reuse a password or use the same password for more than one account. That's a huge one, right? No? Now, that means if you have 200 or 300 accounts, you gotta have 200 or 300 passwords, right? So how do you keep track of all of those? You could write them down in a little book, but you don't want to do that because that's dangerous. So that's where the LastPass password keeper comes into play. And the 2-factor authentication that you can use with the Authenticator app is going to be what makes that super secure. Don't enter passwords on sites that aren't encrypted. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. What does it mean when a site's encrypted? If you've ever been to a website and looked up in the upper right-hand or left-hand corner and seen the little lock symbol in the address bar, and it says HTTPS, then that generally means that it's an encrypted website. And more or less you can depend on that. If the lock symbol is unlocked or grayed out or it says not secure, don't do anything on that website. Leave that website immediately. Don't fill out a contact form. Don't do anything. I won't say which one, but there is a local police department who currently has a website that is not secure. Now, I don't say it's not secure, I'm not saying it colloquially. I'm saying essentially that it doesn't have the HTTPS secure symbol. I will tell you which one. You can Google the different ones and see which one, but All right. Never log in from someone else's device. That's a really big one. You know, if you go to the library and you think, oh, I'm just gonna check my email real quick and whatever, I can't get a phone connection, don't do that. Big deal. Never email passwords. Email is not a secure method of sending data. And if you absolutely had to email something, email the username and then text the password to somebody. So you've broken them up into two separate forms of communication. If you can, just share the password with someone using LastPass or a password keeper and share, but don't ever email passwords. Yeah, absolutely. You could say that my password is littles, asterisk / -5. Okay. Never log into accounts over a public Wi-Fi or connection that you don't know is secure. And how do you know it's secure? Generally, if it's a public Wi-Fi and it's not locked down, if the password is available, like when you go in and it's on a little placard in the coffee shop, consider that network not secure. And then use two-factor authentication wherever possible. So most websites now are starting to prompt that. But if you don't have two-factor authentication to log in as an admin to your website, you definitely want to implement that as quickly as possible. So here's another way to come up with a good password. Be cautious about who has access. Okay, this is a little tip from this guy named Kevin Mitnick, who is a former hacker who has now turned into a security consultant. He consults for major companies. He actually spent some time in federal prison, I believe, for a while before he became a security consultant. But he says, if an attacker wants to break into a system, the most effective approach is to exploit the weakest link. And that weakest link is people. And it really is true. The people that you allow to have an admin role on your website, that is going to almost always be your weakest link. So if you have an employee that leaves for whatever reason, they leave on good terms, they leave on bad terms, whatever it is, you want to make sure that you demote them from the admin role on your website, and better yet, just shut off their user account to your website. This is a WordPress site we're looking at right here in the users bar. Okay, make sure anyone who has access agrees to abide by your company's cybersecurity policy. Your cybersecurity policy could be a comprehensive 20-page document, or it could be a half a paragraph. It really could be very simple. The longer the better generally, but it really could be just a very, very short statement about how they're going to not do any of the things that we just talked about, logging in over cafe Wi-Fi's and not emailing passwords and things like that. It can just be a list of those items. Okay, and the second thing is have a company cybersecurity policy. If you don't have one, try to start with a half a page, and you can always improve it and enhance it over time. So then we're talking about what is an HTTPS enabled website. So this is the not secure website at the top. You've probably gone to a site that still has a not secure warning. And then if you see the green secure bar with HTTPS, that means that it is at least secured with an SSL certificate. Okay, let's see, keep going here. So what is an SSL certificate? It's a digital certificate that authenticates the identity of the website and enables an encrypted connection. It's as simple as that. Almost every web hosting company can issue you one. Let's Encrypt offers a free one. So there's no reason not to have your website encrypted with a SSL certificate. All right, so let's talk now about what kind of website you have. If your website, let's talk about what a content management system is. Basically, it's a way to manage your content, allowing multiple contributors to create, edit, and publish on your website. So some of you are going to have websites that are on hosted CMSs, Shopify, Wix, Squarespace, which means that the hosting company is providing the framework essentially for you to manage your website, and the interface also means that the provider, Shopify, Wix, Squarespace, is taking care of the security for the most part of anything as far as maintaining the infrastructure of your website. They're not going to prevent against, you emailing a password and your password getting stolen or something like that, or you logging in over an insecure connection. But you have what's called an open source CMS. Most of you are familiar with WordPress, but there's also Joomla, Magento, and Drupal. If you have one of those, you have a much bigger job to protect your website against cyber attacks. So let's take a quick poll. For those who have a website, who's on one of the platforms on the left, which is a hosted CMS? Yeah, we've got a few. Which one are you on? HubSpot. Yes, that's a good platform. How many are on an open source CMS, WordPress or otherwise? Yeah, you have one that goes here. Both? Okay. All right, so here's the thing. 65% of websites that use a CMS that we can identify, that we can gauge numbers on, use WordPress, and that's why this is such an important topic. So one of the tips is hire a great hosting provider. And you really get what you pay for when it comes to hosting providers. There are some hosting providers that you get hosting for $10 or $15 a month. And some of those can be okay, but for the most part, it's not going to be enterprise level hosting, what I would consider to be hosting that's good enough for even a small business to depend on, and especially with regards to security. Make sure your hosting company provides automatic daily backups of your website. That means they're backing it up. You're not having to rely on a plugin in your WordPress. They're just backing it up at the server level. And you should be able to have what they call a restore point, or a point that you could do a one-click restore to get your website restored to a previous version. So for example, if you have a month of backup stored, and then you find out that a week and a half ago, your website got hacked and some malicious code got injected, you can just go back to a version of your whole website that was saved, say 2.5 weeks ago, get restored, and you bring everything back as your site was 2.5 weeks ago. That's the really critical point, is to have a restore point that goes far enough back that unless you're going to check your website every day to see if something's happened with it, I recommend a month of backups, but at least a week. Okay, next. Look for a hosting company with exceptional customer support. This is my thing, even for non-techies. I hate talking to hosting company support, and we do this all day long, but if they just don't know what they're doing, you're going to waste so much time. So find a good hosting company that has great customer support and skilled people that if you have a problem with your site or you have a question, they can really address your question expertly. WordPress core and plugins. So let's talk about that for just a second. 98% of WordPress vulnerabilities are related to outdated plugins. So that means you should update your plugins every day. Now, that means you're going to update your plugins regularly, right? But you want to, of course, when you update your plugins, make sure that it's not going to break your website, because that can happen. Sometimes you just go click. I had a client that said, oh, I just go there every day and I just click update, 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 and now my website's broken. So there are conflicts that will happen from time to time, and you need to kind of have a process for finding out what the compatibility of different versions of your plugins are before you hit update, and then you test the web. Hopefully you'll test the website after and make sure your contact form still works, all those things. For most plugins, they release updates every few weeks. WordPress core updates are released about once a month. But don't rush out to update them immediately after they're released. Plan, say a monthly or twice a month time to sit down and update all of your plugins, update the WordPress core, and then test after you update. Use extra layers of security. So if you can, use what's called a content delivery network. Cloudflare is one of those. How many people have heard of Cloudflare? A couple. Okay, Cloudflare is a really, really important tool, and it's actually the lowest tier of that is free. You can actually route your domain through Cloudflare such that it adds an extra layer of security to your website. Use a good security plugin on your website, such as WordFence. We're a big WordFence fan. We recommend WordFence Premium, but even the free version gives you so much benefit, and I would really encourage you to look into that. Number 7, get cyber insurance. Why do you need cyber insurance? For this reason. You can have the best cyber plan in the world, but there's always human error, right? So cyber insurance is going to help protect your business. If you do have something that goes wrong, it can help you with the costs of recovering your website, making any kind of reparations to people whose data was leaked, things like that. Finally, hire a web development firm or security firm to help. It can be very, very inexpensive to have a firm manage your website updates and your maintenance, your technical part of your website. I encourage you, whether it's our firm or any other firm, to talk to someone who does this and really knows cybersecurity for websites. Your vulnerability scans to find out what the vulnerability you may have in your website is, and then how to fix it. Two little bonus tips here. This is the idea of running the scan. There are some low-cost options that you can look for online. I can talk to you about after this if you're interested, as far as how to run your own security scans. And then also try to determine what level of security compliance your website needs. So you may not need to have HIPAA compliance, but depending on the type of information you collect on your people that are filling out a contact form on your website, you might need HIPAA compliance. First name, last name, email address, that's enough for HIPAA the HIPAA Act essentially to consider that if it's anything related to health insurance, for example, for an individual, you need to have a HIPAA compliant website if you're collecting their data on your website, even if it's just first name, last name, and email address. Final thought, keeping your website secure is not something that you're just going to do one time. Essentially, something you gotta kind of think about every day, or at least once a week, where you're going to have a plan, you're going to put a plan into place, and then you're going to work the plan. So that is my brief presentation. 23 minutes, not that. Okay. Real quickly, I don't know if we want to do Q&A after. Maybe I'll let Ben come up and talk, and then if you guys have any questions for either one of us, feel free to ask, and we're here. So Ben Clapp with Wasatch IT. Please welcome Ben.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being so welcoming and warm today. Show of hands, who's excited about cybersecurity? Okay. And who's a little bit more scared? After my presentation, let's do that poll again. Thank you for the generous introduction. Like was said, I'm the Compliance and Cybersecurity Advisor at Wasatch IT. If you need IT support for your business, you need advice, you need somebody to say, is this really a phishing email? You want me to look at it? Give us a call. And today I want to talk about how to protect your organization from a cyber attack. That's our objective today. And this is why this matters, because you might have already received a text message like this morning. It looks like your bank. It smells like your bank. It sounds like your bank, but is it your bank? No, not in this case. I had a buddy in IT, very technical, very, you wouldn't think, he would ever be hacked. Got a text like this, said, well, maybe it's because he was in IT. He said, no, this is not me that was trying to do this charge. And somebody called immediately, caller ID said his bank. And so he just, this is a really helpful person on the phone. Hey, someone's trying to get in your account and set up Zelle. We need to stop this. And he's like, oh my goodness, thank you so much. And they said, oh, I just need to send you a code to confirm your identity, right? And of course, that's routine. Sometimes that happens. And so he gave that code. And before he knew it, he realized a little too late that he had given over his MFA code over the phone to this person. They actually set up Zelle instead of unset up Zelle, and they drained his account. So I don't want that to happen to you personally, and I don't want that to happen, something similar to that, to your business, okay? So we're gonna talk about a variety of different attacks. We're gonna talk about the who and the why of cyber attacks, phishing, spoofing, ransomware, social engineering, social media, and then we'll end this rapid fire conversation with some best practices. Are you interested? Show of hands. Okay, more than half of you, I'll take that. So who and why? Why are we talking about this? It's because there's kind of a stereotype that all these cyber criminals are just wearing a black hoodie in their mother's basement with like green text flying around, just like the Matrix, right? And that could be true, but not always. Sometimes cyber criminals, cyber attackers are nation state actors. Sometimes they're criminal syndicates. Sometimes they're just desperate people that are spending their last $1,000 on ransomware as a service because they know that that is a good likelihood of getting them out of a desperate situation. And sometimes their motives are different. Sometimes it's political motives, sometimes it's just purely financial. So we need to be aware of a variety of different characters and be aware of attacks from all different types of individuals. That's why we want to free our mind from these kind of stereotypes, because then we'll miss the nice person that sounds like our bank on the phone. So we're going to talk about a few different attack types, starting with phishing. I'm sure you've encountered phishing emails before, right? But let's start at the basics. Phishing emails are fraudulent emails trying to get you to give over your confidential information, your password, personal identifiable information, your account access, something like that. And everyone's plagued by this. National security has been felt by phishing emails, all the way down to small businesses. So let's look at some examples. This is the exact email that John Podesta received that caused the Clinton campaign to get hacked. Let's analyze it a little bit. It's in HTML, so it looks a little weird. And this projector is not in 8K or whatever, apparently. But no, that's a joke. I didn't expect that. But the point is, I will narrate for you because it's hard to see screens. It's hard to see text. We don't want to look at it very closely. It's uncomfortable. So it's it fits in with the theme. So subject, someone has your password. Hi, John. Someone just used your password to sign into your Gmail account. Google stopped this. By the way, they were from Ukraine. And you should change your password immediately. Click this link to change your password, right? We've received emails like that. It looked legit. It didn't look like this. It looked like Google. And John thought, I better check with my IT team. Good idea, John. Unfortunately, there was some miscommunication. They meant to type back, this is illegitimate, but they typed back, it's legitimate. Ooh, woof. Obviously, we know, unfortunately, one of the other mistakes is that they were using personal Gmail accounts to do business, right? So that's another thing we'll touch on later. And even that wouldn't have been a big deal, right? If John had received that, oh, okay, I should change my password out of an abundance of caution. I'm going to click on my upper right-hand little profile, go to change password and change my password, right? That would have been fine. But he clicked what? The link. He clicked the link, and we see here, it's a bit.ly link. Does anyone know what a bit.ly link is? It's a disaster, that's right. bit.ly is awesome. I've used it for a lot of events, bit.ly, / events, 2023 or whatever I'm promoting. But it shortens the link and obfuscates it. So you hover over it and it doesn't show you it's going to google.com, it doesn't show you it's going to hacker.com. So be careful of any links that don't have a known good address. Make sense? Okay. More locally, maybe you don't think, I'm not running a big campaign. Why does this matter to me? Because our friends over in Eagle Mountain just lost over $1 million in a routine transaction. You saw this a week or two ago now. Long story short, an attacker I don't know how organized they were, but an attacker probably compromised this vendor. They were kind of hanging out, watching the emails happen, watching the conversation. They knew Eagle Mountain had a big project coming up, and then just had the right email, signature right, everything, and they just kind of slipped that in. Oh, by the way, this is where you send the ACH transfer. And just like that, because it looked like the vendor, smelled like the vendor, sounded like the vendor, and then they lost $1 million. So just because it looks like it's the same thread, it looks like everything's right, doesn't mean that we shouldn't have policies and procedures when we're transferring money. Make sense? All right. I'm going to teach you the SLAM method, and I'm going to have you recite it back to me, okay? So we're going to, do a little, call and response. Sender. Subject. Links. Attachments. message. Very good, very good. So we're going to use that as a lens, and I want to teach you that method. Every time you have an email that's a little bit suspicious, use the SLAM method. So I have some phishing emails here. I say, this looks a little suspicious. I'm going to use the SLAM method. I look at the sender. It says postmaster. Okay, I click on it. I don't know if it's really postmaster. It says postmaster us.ibm.com. That's my first red flag. Why would IBM be sending me Office 365 emails? I look at the subject. Your messages couldn't be delivered. Well, that could be suspicious, or it could be just normal. And basically, I then look at my links. Well, that's the smoking gun right there. It's not taking me to office.com. It's taking me to spapparelsindia.in, which I'm not interested in any Indian apparel right now. And so I know that it's good. And there's no attachments here. The message looks a little suspicious. So I know it's fraudulent. Are you with me? I include this one on the right just to show you this is only the message on the right. You don't have links, attachments, the header, sender, subject. You don't have anything else. Don't just look at an email and think it looks right. And so it must be right. Just a few other examples of phishing campaigns. Who likes to receive shiny messages in the mail? Yes, all of you do. It's like every day. Don't click on these links. Always go to Amazon.com, USPS.com, a known good link, your already logged in app, even if you're expecting a package to come. Because they know hackers will take your shiny little object, whatever it is, and they will take advantage of you. So don't do that. A couple more quick little hits. It could look like just your normal Discover card, Amex, whatever it is, your normal bank transaction. Everything looks the exact same as it always has, but it could be a fraudulent link. So just because it looks normal to you, you're expecting it, still be careful. Could look like the bottom one, a very generic HR department email. Dear employee, please complete the survey. Your HR department should know who you are, right? So just be careful that you're not taken advantage of by a very broad campaign. This one upper right, this is an example of why you don't change your wiring instructions at the last minute when you're buying a house. So again, similar to the Eagle Mountain case, somebody was camping out in that real estate broker's email, or they were just watching it closely, or they had some insider information. Again, maybe don't post a lot of information on social media, so attackers could, create something very convincing about you, or insert it and send it to your clients. But they did that. They knew the address of the house. They had the email signature. They created a domain that looked almost exactly right, and that's how wiring instructions get corrupted and wires are gone, and you know how impossible that is to get back. Yes.
The IRS never sends emails. They only send snail mail.
That's exactly right.
FYI.
FYI. People, they know how to get a hold of you. If it's legitimate, I promise. A couple more quick hits. These are all CEO impersonation situations. I hope your CEO doesn't email you, like urgently, I need all these W-2s. Hey, I need you to buy gift cards for the whole office. You can only reach me through this email. Just watch out for that sort of stuff, right? That's kind of the telltale signs. Spear phishing and whaling, I'll just touch on this briefly. Phishing campaigns like that HR department email. It's broad. We're all trying to, get caught, or they're trying to catch us all. But a spear phishing is when you specifically are targeted. That's the one where they slip it in the email thread or something like that. So you have to kind of be aware of that. And if you're a high value target, CEO, HR director, finance, whatever it is, you have admin access to the important systems, they're going to whale for you. You're a big fish. So let's talk about the cousins of phishing and smishing, okay? Phishing is voice-based phishing, and SMS-based phishing or text-based phishing is called smishing, okay? Just kind of slur your words, it's fine. As others have mentioned already, the IRS is not going to text you that you're being sued. So just ignore those texts. If FedEx, is reaching you and says, oh, your package has been, lost, enter a claim here, maybe slow down and don't click right away. Phishing is on the increase, especially since COVID. because it's human nature to just trust a voice a lot more on the phone than a text or an email. So just know yourself and know that Apple, as this article talked about a couple years ago, Apple, even if it shows up on the caller ID, it's probably not Apple. They can spoof those things. Even if it's your IT team or someone that sounds really technical, doesn't mean it is your IT team, right? Don't let someone bully you on the phone. If you were one of our clients, we would always say, if there's any suspicion, and just hang up, call us back on a known good number and say, hey, this guy Ben was trying to get in, and do some maintenance on my computer. And then someone could say, oh yeah, I have a ticket for that right here. So trust but verify. Okay, let's take another angle on these cyber attacks. Spoofing. I talked about caller ID can be spoofed, websites can be spoofed, emails can be spoofed. They look real, they smell real, they taste real if you could taste a website. But I don't know, is it right? Now again, couldn't you read the URL from the back of the room? Potentially not. But do you read your URL on your laptop? No, you don't. Well, maybe you do sometimes. Doug already touched on this. Do you see on the left, that little padlock? Who's paying attention to Doug? What is that? Yes, exactly right. It's HTTPS, SSL certificate, secure. That's not always a surefire way, because I could make hacker.com and then buy an SSL certificate, and then it would be secure. But that's if it's like Facebook or Google or your bank, you need find that padlock. And you're not gonna even be able to see this, but just really quickly, if it's in that bold text, that's usually kind of indicating what the actual domain is, right? And if you ever see .com, .org, .net, and then that word right to the left of that, that's what's called the top level domain and then that domain. So for example, that when you go to maps.google.com, maps is the subdomain of google.com, right? It's the same as saying google.com/maps. So I don't know if you can see this one on the right. It says bisha.jabberprov.go.id. So we know that ID is the top level domain, so we know that we're actually at go.id. Make sense? So even in the smaller gray text on that right image, it says linkedin.com in the URL, but it's not part of the bolded stuff. They could be even trickier and say linkedin.com.go.id. And you think, oh, I'm at linkedin.com, right? Wrong. You're at just a subdomain of go.id. Does that make sense? I know we're just blazing fast, but that's important. Again, this is an example of, I clicked on a phishing email. It said I needed to log in. It has my email, guys. What am I supposed to do here? I'm supposed to ask myself, wait a minute, do I really need to log in again? Maybe I should go back to my other window where I have Outlook. Maybe I should check on my phone when I'm already logged in. Always stop and ask yourself, even if it says your name. Because in the top, I see it's not Microsoft.com, it's agileones.com, and it has #John@doe.com. That's how it populates it in the code of the website. So just because you see your name doesn't mean that it actually knows who you are and it's trying to authenticate you. Cool? All right, this could happen to you. There's a real company, abccompanyinc.com. I create a fake website, abccompanyinc.com, but I use a lowercase l instead of a capital I. It's sans serif font, and how most websites are, sans serif font scales really nicely. It's less ugly, it's the latest in design language, although we see some serif fonts coming back. But just because you're a human and you can't tell the difference, I can create john.smith@abccompanyinc.com, send it to your finance team, and you think that's your CEO because it looks like John.Smith, it smells like John.Smith if John.Smith has a smell. So you need to be careful. Does that make sense? Just because it looks right doesn't mean it is right. And your brain is really powerful. It's really awesome. It auto-corrects spelling mistakes, even really obvious ones. Unless you remind yourself, I need to slow down. I need to think before I click. Okay, let's talk about the kind of, I don't know, if there was a cyber attack of the year or of the decade, it's probably ransomware. Have we heard of ransomware before? Technically, if you haven't, just to get everyone on the same page, ransomware encrypts all the files and folders on your computer. It spreads around your network, and then you must pay a ransom to unlock all these files. Really, unfortunately, what's really common now is double extortion. Ransomware as a strain, as a strategy. They're more convinced or more concerned with getting your information off of your network, off of your devices. More concerned with that in some ways than actually locking it up, because you might have great backups like that you did 2 years ago, and you might say, we have a great IT team, but then they say, well, we have all this sensitive data about your clients, and we're gonna actually go email them and say that your company isn't paying us. We're gonna harass them instead. So it's really nasty stuff. That's what happened to you here. It just came in through a normal psychology department email, I believe it was. And they paid them almost $500,000 at the advice of their cyber insurance company to not have that release of the information. Of course, there's no guarantee though that you paid these criminals and they're not gonna release it on the dark web anyway. So it's really important that we stay vigilant. We tell our stakeholders, our employees, our friends, family members, how to avoid ransomware. Just some more headlines. You might have seen JBS, Colonial Pipeline, more locally, Premier Family Medical, Garfield County. It doesn't just affect nation states, right? I know this is how Russia annexed Crimea in 2014 by taking down our power grid through ransomware, but it also is how they take down small businesses, and they know exactly the financial information you have, so they will make that ransom exactly tempting enough that you want to pay it. It will still cripple you, but it's just on that edge. So we got to watch out. So how does ransomware get in? Well, it could be just a random remittance you get, a PDF that says you need to update to the latest Adobe Reader, and so you update to Adobe Reader in quotes, and then you download what could be ransomware. It could be a cell phone, a voicemail, but really that's an HTML file. It takes you to a web page. You think it's Microsoft, you log in, you have your credentials, bad things happen from there. This is really common now. It could be from in a legit file sharing application like Dropbox, iCloud, Google Drive, etc. I get it. My job is to also please review attached things in emails. So when I get an email that says please review attached, I want to click on it. But don't. Just because the subject says please review attached doesn't mean you have to. Okay? I'm gonna let this play a couple times. This is a classic 1-2 punch. The cyber attacker sends you an email saying, your salary's been reduced, by the way. Dear, sincerely, HR department. And so you panic and you click on the email. It says, oh, you need to hit enable editing and you need to hit enable content. Enabling editing on a file like this allows the file to make changes on your computer, which is necessary in order to save it to your computer. But that's, can be also used for malicious ends. When you hit enable content, you're allowing these macros in the file to run. And so they can be legitimate, really sweet Excel spreadsheets that pull a lot of data into an Excel spreadsheet, or it could be just pulling down a malware on your computer. So never ever enable editing or enable content on a file that you do not 1000% know the source of. Okay, moving on. We've already touched on this briefly. We have to understand the psychosocial impacts and methodology. We have to know ourselves because the cyber attackers know us. They will use psychosocial, social engineering type techniques in conjunction with their technical expertise to make a very convincing attack. So don't just assume that you'll know what an attacker is. They're trying to put you off your game. So they might use authority or intimidation and send an email, and it looks like your CEO or somebody or they claim like to be your biggest vendor. And they say, if you don't pay, in time, I'm going to drop your account. Or I'm your CEO. You need to send everyone gift cards, or else I'm firing you for some reason. Or more likely situations, right? They could use consensus or social proof and say, well, your coworker Ben did this for me. They gave me access last week. Why are you causing such a big stink, just send, the ACH or something. They might say, time is of the essence, you need to hurry, click, don't think. They might say, familiarity or liking or flattery, and just say, you're my hero. I'm so dumb when it comes to computers. Doug, thanks so much. Could you please help me get access? Or I'm your new coworker, I'm working remotely, we've never met, and I need access to the system, or else, the boss is gonna get, a little upset at me. So just because someone's being nice to you also doesn't mean that they're legit. So this is what could happen. I don't want this to happen to you. You're scared, maybe, and you go home today and you say, I'm gonna analyze every single email with this is SLAM method, just like Ben said, and I am gonna not click on that suspicious email. But then somebody calls you on the phone an hour or two later, and you trust human voices, and they say, hey, I'm a new guy at your vendor Acme company, and you would really be helping me out if you looked at that proposal. I sent it to you a couple hours ago, and you're like, oh, thank you for calling. I thought that was spam, I thought that was malicious. Oh, I'm so glad you called, because you're a nice person and you want to help somebody on the phone. So watch out that you don't get taken advantage of. Really quickly, social media. I know that you feel like that's separate from your life. That's personal, perhaps. Why does my company care? Why should I care about that? Well, it's because they'll take advantage of you thinking that you're off the clock, that it's separate from your work life. And so you need to take some consideration to not click on links like this. And I get it, if you got a link, something like this, you'd want to click on it because it's that human desire to see what's going on here. I might be your friend Emily in Paris, and she is been stranded apparently. But if you take a moment to calm down, you see that the grammar's a little off, messages a little off, and there's some weird stock photos on her profile. So watch out for that. Also, don't install these sort of apps. You're probably giving over very sensitive information, all your information on your social media to these companies. And who knows who the app developer is, just to see who viewed your profile or something like that. So be careful on your own social media. So let's land the plane with a couple best practices. Number one, overall, vibe, as the youths say, reward suspicion, okay? So be a company where it's okay to have these conversations about, hey, do you think this email is a little suspicious? Hey, I know that this is our vendor, but I wasn't expecting this ACH transfer request until tomorrow. What's our policy? Can we get on the phone and double check? And don't punish people that bring up these sort of questions. Doug talked a little bit about this, but I want to just drive it home because it's so important. 81% of data breaches are due to a weak default or stolen password, and 60% of people statistically in this room use the same password for every single thing. Now, I don't want to show hands, but no, okay, well, I've already hacked you this morning, so you're fine. Doug talked about it. These are the top 20 most common passwords. I hope you're not using this one, but they know the top 20 million, passwords out there, and they have, server farms, computers that can just, drip against you and your account. So you need to do better than fall 2022 as your password, okay? So my two top urgent recommendations, as in do that at lunch or this weekend or something, is turn on MFA for every single account that you have and can access for both your personal and your work, and get a password manager. Doug mentioned LastPass. I also like Bitwarden because it's a free and open source one. But there's a lot of good ones. If your company doesn't have one, you can encourage your company to get something like Dashlane. We've installed that for some clients, and then you can kind of keep personal passwords in your personal vault and work passwords in your work vault, and then your work passwords stay with the company if that employee ever leaves. But they get to keep their personal ones. So there's some cool ways that we can help both our employees and our companies be more secure. Just quickly, use a really strong, unique primary password for your password manager. And just technically, these password managers, they salt and hash they basically put a lot of extra characters in your passwords, and they don't ever transmit or store your primary password So it's all decrypted and decrypted and encrypted locally on your devices. So never give out that primary password. Also don't lose it, put it in like maybe a safe physically locked away somewhere. Because they don't know what your password is, so you would lose everything. But that's why it's secure. Anyway, I digress. Quick fire list. I'll let you just read through those. Basically, use the best practices. Don't share computers. Don't share Wi-Fi. Don't share information. Keep everything separate. Don't use your work account for personal life and vice versa. And basically, we're all going to be in a better place. What time are we at? Right on the nose. Excellent. Well, I don't have time for your questions because I want to respect our presenters' time, your time. But come talk to myself or Doug. And if you ever have an IT need, reach out to us. I'd be happy to help. And we really appreciate your attention. And let's kind of like be cyber secure. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Doug and Ben. I just want to shout out again, we have some coffee in the back, Sugar House Coffee. And then we also, Dean and Corey, these wandering around doing photos. They also have headshots in the back over in our exhibitor section that will be open during lunch, networking, and throughout the day too. So remember that too. It's our privilege to have and introduce our next speaker, which is Justin Nelson, the co-founder and president of the National LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce, the business voice of the LGBT community and the largest LGBT economic advocacy and business development organization in the world. GLCC is the exclusive private sector certifying body for LGBT-owned businesses. In addition to over 50 LGBT affiliate chambers in the United States, representing America's 1.4 million LGBT business owners, GLCC leads economic development opportunities for over a dozen international affiliates as well. Justin was appointed to serve on the Small Business Association's SBA Council on underserved communities headed by Administrator Guzman. He works in close collaboration with the SBA to ensure that diverse LGBTQE business owners are supported by allowing them access to federal procurement, subcontracting, and economic development initiatives. Justin is the recipient of the 2016 Excellence Award by the U.S. Pan-Asian American Chamber of Commerce and the 2017 Global Disability Leadership Award for his work in building and leading cross-segment partnerships. He has also been named to the Global LGBT Power 100 by the UK's Guardian newspaper, Top 20 Leaders We Admire by Smart CEO magazine, and twice to the Out 100. And that's just a few. Justin resides in Washington, D.C. and holds a BA from the University of Wyoming. So let's welcome him with a loud round of applause.
Thank you. Is this on? I think it's on. First of all, what a pleasant opportunity it is to be here in Salt Lake. I grew up just a couple of states north in Wyoming, and as I was mentioning to some people earlier today, I'm a little bit bittersweet because this is my last day before I head back to what is affectionately known as the swamp. I've been out west for the last 2 months since our conference in Las Vegas. But before I get into what I wanted to talk about today, I just want to say what a privilege it is to have been billed as the keynote. But I think what you just heard is probably some of the best, if not the best, advice that you're going to hear today. It is absolutely apparent that if you aren't thinking about cybersecurity right now, your business is at risk. And I used to say if you weren't the hyper-local yogurt shop on the corner, but if you are the hyper-local yogurt shop on the corner and you want to give free yogurt for a birthday or you want to have a rewards program, anything that you do that asks for data from a client, from a customer, puts you at risk and puts your customers at risk. And that's incredibly important. And it's incredibly important in the work that we do at NGLCC because we're in the supply chain business. We help LGBT-owned companies contract with major corporations. And these are not chump change contracts. Some of them might be a few $1,000s, but some of them are multi-million dollars. And what happened, say, pre-COVID, where if you were working with financial services companies and you had to have your cybersecurity house in order because you were dealing with sensitive financial services data, has now become everybody's issue. We had 5 years of digital transformation in 18 months. So I just say that if you haven't been thinking about it, start today, talk to these experts that just spoke to you because it's imperative that you get your cybersecurity house in order. Your customers depend on it, and if you don't, you won't be in business in 18 months. It's that simple. So with that said, it is really a pleasure to be here. And I guess to paraphrase generations of US presidents, the state of our LGBTQ business union is strong, but it's vulnerable. I think all you need to do is look at headlines today. Nearly 400 bills have been introduced, state and local bills, that are attacking the LGBTQ+ community. Many of them are trans and non-binary communities. And a subset of that, a large subset of that being our trans youth. In fact, you all know that better than anyone here in Utah. You had your governor veto the law, you had your legislature override it recently. But that's happening across the country. And so as we've seen, I think, monumental change in the last 10 years, we're now seeing the boomerang effect. We're now seeing LGBTQ people put back at the center of the wedge issues as we look at elections. And while we have 50 plus, maybe 60% of the public that is with us, that's not the same case when you think about decision makers. Unfortunately, people that are elected to office don't accurately represent the will of the people, despite their desire to subscribe to that. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing at NGLCC. I want to talk to you about what you can do as business owners and the business community to really take power, to really think about the power that we have as leaders in the business community, and to utilize that in a way that perhaps hasn't been adequately realized. Before we get started, can we just show of hands, are you a business owner? Show of hands if you own your own company. All right, I'm going to ask one more thing. I want you to stand up because it's important that I know who's in the room. If you're a business owner, stand up. Don't be shy. Quickly, I want to go around the room. This is not your 92-minute pitch to everybody, but I want to know who you are. I want to know what your business does because it's important to the conversation that we're going to have. Tracy, let's start with you. Samantha? Awesome. Great. Wonderful. Go back here. And coffee, that's amazing. Wonderful, Michael.
I'm Michael Aaron. I'm with Tucson Magazine, 20 years in January, which is kind of cool. And then QP does 18 years at Virgin coming off in November.
Awesome. Back here. Wonderful.
Mike Simmons with two-man movers in story.
Mike, a little louder.
Mike with two-man movers in story.
All right.
We go across the street, across the country, and across the room.
Awesome.
Marcy
expertise. I do consulting for small businesses and nonprofits, and I am representing Williams Project.
Great.
As well, I own risk of keeping the accounting
Laboratory insurance services specializing in Medicare insurance.
Wonderful. All right, great. Well, you've just seen a smattering of who your business owners are in the community. By show of hands, how many of you work for a small business that maybe you don't own it, but you work for the small business? Awesome. And then the rest of you, corporate, who works for corporate here? All right, and then maybe nonprofit. Okay, excellent. Well, I do that because it's important that we understand where we are, and I want to take just a minute to recognize sort of the elephant in the room. We're not where we were going to be last week. We're in a new venue, and I think we need to recognize the bravery, the authenticity of what this chamber has done. You know, it's not done because corporations are bad. They're not. In fact, as I'll talk about in a minute, they're literally spending hundreds of millions of dollars with LGBT-owned businesses, but everybody makes mistakes. That's why where we are where we are today. And I think we all should give a round of applause to the Utah LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce for being brave and making this decision. It was the right thing to do. Words matter. Words matter. And I have no doubt that the leadership of the chamber is going to have the difficult conversations that help educate companies as to why words matter and what words mean. So congratulations and thank you. I want to talk a little bit about who NGLCC is. I want to talk a little bit about the community at large, our business community at large, some of our advocacy efforts, and then maybe some strategies for how you all as business people, whether you own the company, whether you work in the company, and whether you live in the community, what we can do to ensure that we're helping move the ball forward. Because if you think about things, right now, yet again, after we took a deep breath, we're under attack. And what had been, I think, assumed as lifelong benefits are now at risk again. You know, you have Supreme Court justices that are saying we need to rethink Obergefell. You know, the Supreme Court's not supposed to be political. That statement is political, period. We fought long and hard. You heard from Senator Kitchen right here. It started right here. And unfortunately, many of the rights that we have received as LGBTQ+ people have come through the courts. And we saw it with reproductive health. We may see it again as we're put on the ballot. Our elected officials in Washington right now are looking at how they codify marriage equality. By the way, your junior senator is a critical vote to that. So if you have access and entree to Senator Romney, he will be a critical vote in that. Your other senators probably a lost cause on that issue. But we need to get to what is going to ensure that we have enough votes to offset a filibuster. I want to talk a little bit about what that means too, because we talk to the same people over and over again. Our champions, the people that are with us all the time. We don't need to focus on the people that are with us all the time. We need to focus on who are those movable 3, 4, 5, 10 senators that are going to be with us, maybe not on every issue, but on particular issues because of who we are and what we bring to our communities and to our economy. So let's start out just a little bit by who NGLCC is. I want to leave time at the end for questions. But as was mentioned in the intro, we were founded in 2002. We launched our global division in 2014. We are the exclusive certifying body for LGBT companies. What does that mean to you? It means if you own a company, you're 51% owned, operated, and controlled by an LGBT person or persons, you can be certified through NGLCC via your connection to the Utah Chamber, And you have the ability to bid on contracts by over 400 corporations that are looking to do business with you, not despite the fact that you're LGBT, but because you're LGBT. We have 70 affiliate chambers. We're proud to have the Utah Chamber as one of those that are state, local, and global. You have a nationwide, in fact, a global-wide network of other businesses that you can connect with just because you're a member here of the Utah Chamber. And we're the founder of the National Business Inclusion Consortium. If anyone in this room thinks that we have not achieved the rights that we have without the work of allies, you're nuts. We couldn't be here without the work of allies. And so we founded the National Business Inclusion Consortium with the idea that people of color, people with disabilities, women, veterans, other diverse and marginalized communities can come together and we can focus on mutually agreeable issues and we can support one another. And so that's why we founded this consortium now, I guess it's been 11 years ago. We talk a lot about the circle of LGBTQ business inclusion. You know, I remember when we first started this organization, I look out across the audience, some of you were probably in diapers at the time, which doesn't make me feel good, it makes me feel old, but I'm glad you're in the room. But the reality was that corporate America saw this potential audience, they saw this potential consumer base. And so they started advertising and saying, hey, you know what? We should be doing a little bit more in what was then known as the gay and lesbian community. And largely we responded saying, oh my God, someone thinks that we're people, let's buy products and services, let's feel included, let's give our support to these organizations. But like any movement, we decided we should probably start pushing for some things like workplace equality. How are you going to treat and retain your employees? And largely corporate America responded saying, you know what, yes, we should be concerned about those issues, they're important to us. What we said when we came on the scene was it's great that you're marketing, it's great that you're getting your HR house in order, but what are you doing to buy back and invest in the LGBTQ+ community like you are other diverse communities? And I'm proud to say that while it's been a bit of a project over the last now 20 years this year, largely corporate America said, you know what, our supply base, those from whom we buy products and services, should look like the customer and employee base that we have, or the customer and employee base that we're trying to attract. And so that's what we've been working on. So certification as an NGLCC supplier. Again, if you're 51% owned, operated, and controlled, you're eligible for certification. If you're a member of the Utah Chamber, your certification fee is waived. You don't pay a dime to get certified, yet you have access to over 400 corporations. And these are corporations, you know, I was looking at your skyline last night, companies like Wells Fargo, there are companies like, you know, Google, Facebook, you know, you name it, every single industry. You think about the West, we're all, you know, in the West End. You think about energy, Chevron and ExxonMobil, and you think about companies like Delta, American Airlines, those companies, they're all looking for LGBT-owned firms with whom they can contract. So you have access to that by being a member of the Utah Chamber of Commerce. And again, it's available to companies that are for-profit. So for our nonprofit partners, you're not eligible for certification, but if you are a for-profit entity, 51% owned, operated, and controlled, you are. A couple of other things. I was really pleased also to hear Senator Kitchen talk about his business. We have given away over $1.5 million in grants to restaurants across this country over the last year through a partnership with Grubhub. Those hit hardest by COVID-19. We've given away another $500,000 to LGBTQ businesses in general. Those of you that were struggling as a result of the downturn from COVID. That's all access. You have access to that because you're a member of the Utah Chamber. You get access to applying for those grants and those opportunities and the ability to participate in some of our other programs like our Communities of Color initiative, our Trans and Gender Expansive initiative, and our Platinum Circle. By the way, we are some of the most robust companies in the country. Our Platinum Circle has a floor of $1 million, up to $750 million in annual revenue. Those are the kind of businesses that are out there. The kind of businesses that you can be doing business with, the kind of businesses that can mentor you, that can be a part of your strategic plan for how you grow your enterprise. I mentioned the National Business Inclusion Consortium earlier. It's headed up by us at NGLCC, but it includes the U.S. Hispanic Chamber, the U.S. Pan Asian Chamber, the U.S. Black Chamber, Women Impacting Public Policy, the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, the National Minority Supplier Development Council, the National Association of Veteran Business Owners, the National Disability In, which is the National Disability Organization. These are all groups. And by the way, we talk about intersectionality. So I often say I'm the worst potential spokesperson for NGLCC. I'm a cisgendered white gay man, but we are so much more. And I look out across the audience today. We're women, we're non-binary, we're trans, we're every socioeconomic status. We live in every county in this country. And so it's important for us to really talk and look at intersectionality. How can we work together across diverse segments to ensure that, when we work together, we all do better? It's really important. So let's talk about the LGBT community by the numbers. There are 20 million LGBT Americans self-identify in this country alone. You all know this, we were talking about it earlier. I played it safe and said the top 10. I know you all proudly, as I was told this morning, it's number 7, it's number 7, it's number 7, so I will change that the next time I do that. But how does it look by generation? I think this is also important. I think this is really important for those of you in the audience that are targeting this segment with the LGBT community, LGBTQ+ community, as customers. How do we break down by generation? The Gen Z. And concerns with some of the folks on this list, but I'll tell you, Apple, Target, Absolute. By the way, we're doing an amazing program, and I'd love to bring it right here to Utah around absolute and succession planning. You know that less than a third of small businesses have a succession plan. Less than a fourth of LGBTQ small businesses have a succession plan. So what are you going to do when it's time to retire? What are you going to do if you have a catastrophic experience? If you haven't been thinking about that, you should. Companies like Absolute are working with us to do that. Google's another one, Starbucks, Subaru, Wells Fargo. You have a great company in Wells Fargo that has been a part of our organization, our second founding corporate partner. And I'll tell you a story about Wells because it's something that I think we've seen time and time again with our corporate community. Again, we're 20 years old this year. We started out with one partner 20 years ago. We're over 400 now. But with Wells, what we found when we made this announcement that they'd be the first financial services company, not just marketing to the LGBT segment, but buying back and investing through procurement. What we found, what we thought would happen did. There were new accounts, car loans, mortgages, business accounts, that sort of stuff. What they didn't anticipate and what we didn't anticipate was the outpouring of support from their human capital. People that were LGBTQ, people that had LGBTQ family members. So it's become a part of their recruitment and retention effort. So it's not only talking about the 16 to 20 million of us that are LGBTQ, but our parents, our family, our siblings, our friends, all of those sorts of people. So incredibly important. We're going to talk a little bit about America's LGBT economy. And this is a survey that we commissioned because, as you all probably know, we haven't been included in the US Census. We were about to be included in the US Census. We had a previous president and some of his cronies that didn't want us included in the US Census, so we're not included in the US Census. But we wanted to make sure that we got an accurate look, not just about that 1.4 million that we put into the economy every year. 1.4 billion, excuse me. Trillion, good Lord. I need more of that coffee. 1.4 trillion that we put into the economy, but what do we put in as business owners? What are we doing as part of this small business engine that makes the economy run? And so we commissioned this study to be done. Those of you that are familiar with Winnick Communications, Bob has done any statistic that you've heard about over the last 25 years in terms million LGBTQ plus business owners in the US. We have a combined economic impact of about $1.7 trillion on the economy. Over 5.6 million jobs in our country can be attributed to businesses that are owned by LGBTQ plus Americans. And I would estimate that number to be about 17,000 right here in Utah. And about 22 to 26,000 people that are employed. So 22 to 26,000 Utah families depend on LGBT-owned companies. And what's our economic output? I just mentioned the $1.7 trillion, but it's also an average of about $2.4 billion per enterprise. Now, keep in mind, these range anywhere from about $20,000 up to $180 million in annual revenues. But we'd be the 10th largest economy in the world. And when you think about the naysayers, when you think about those individuals that would like to send us back to, even not just pre-marriage equality, but when we first started in 2002, it was still illegal to be gay in the United States of America. Same-sex consensual acts were illegal in 2002. In the shadow of 9/11, George W. Bush was in the White House. That's where they want to send us to. They want to send the 10th largest economy in the world back to the dark ages. What does that mean? So if you put our economy on the map, we're larger than the economy of Australia, of Spain, of Mexico, larger than all three of those, and the combined economies of Switzerland, Norway, and Sweden. Now, if you think about that just for a minute, is there a country on earth that wouldn't want to do business with the 10th largest economy in the world? And sometimes I joke about it, you know, they say put them all on an island, put all the LGBTQ people on the island. I think it'd be a great island. You know, it'd probably be like 70 degrees year round, right? Like a vodka soda would be the national drink. We'd have a peacock as our national bird. I'll kind of like to peacock around a bit. And I have to say, for me, our national anthem would be if I could turn back time, because it's sort of how I feel at this point in my life. But the reality is, all jokes aside, if you think about it on the sheer numbers, if we take advantage and ownership over the power that we have to our local, state, and national to argue with. And for whatever reason, oftentimes we're far too shy to utilize that. Or the absolutist. We should do it because it's the thing. You should do it because of humanity. You should do it because of X, Y, or Z. I've got news for you. We've got the 56, 58% that hit that. We need the 2 to 3% that are going to get us past the point of 60 votes in the Senate that are going to ensure that the filibuster doesn't kill our issues. So what are we going to do to appeal to that group? And it isn't pretty. We didn't write the rules, but we've got to be willing to utilize the power that we've been given. And the power that we've been given is the 10th largest economy in the world. That means something. So what do? We turn that into advocacy. And we have to look broader than just LGBT inclusive advocacy. It's vital, it's important. The work that each one of you has done to ensure non-discrimination ordinances and marriage equality, these are all vitally important. But you can't have equality if you don't have equity. How on earth can we have equality if we don't have equity? If we aren't out there every single day ensuring that our businesses can thrive, that we can provide for our employees, that we can provide for our families. And so we have to look at advocacy differently. It can't be 1, 2, 3 issues. It can be 1, 2, 3 issues plus 1, 2, 3, 10 more issues. Issues that have nothing perhaps to do directly with LGBT activism or equality, but have a lot to do with what you in this room are trying to accomplish. And unless I'm completely off base and somewhere I shouldn't be, that's grow your revenues, grow your business, and be as successful as you can possibly be. So when we look at advocacy, let's look at a couple of things. Yes, let's look at things like the Equality Act. I'm sure most of you know, and I'm preaching to the choir here, but in most states in this country, despite marriage equality, by the way, despite the fact that you can get married in any county, in any state, anywhere in the country, you can still be denied credit at your bank. If you go in 35 states in this country and ask for a bridge loan because you're having a shortfall, or you're wanting to buy the building that you've been renting for 5 or 10 years, you can be told no, solely based on the fact that you're an LGBTQ+ person. It's ridiculous. The Equality Act remedies that. We should remedy that. We have to remedy that. By the way, that building you've been renting for 5 or 10 years gets sold to someone else, they can kick you out of it the same amount of states for no other reason. They don't like queer people. Pack up your machinery, tell your employees we'll try and find a place, and you're gone. That's got to be rectified. And we're darn close to being able to do that. Darn close to being able to pass the Equality Act. But there are other things that are important. Infrastructure. Infrastructure matters to every single one of us in this room. Bridges, roads, airports. I flew here today, and we have a gorgeous airport. Amazing airport. Well, you know what? I need it, so it was okay for me. I got my steps in. We weighed in a major way on infrastructure. It's incredibly important. Health equity, especially diversity in clinical trials. When we look at marginalized communities, woefully underrepresented. What we did, if you think back to that National Business Inclusion Consortium, we weighed in on that issue. Because I'm a red-blooded tax-paying American, that every single one of us that are should have the same opportunity to bid on red-blooded tax-paying American funded contracts through our federal government. That's a top priority of mine. I've been able to work with my colleagues representing other diverse communities to make that straight. And I really do believe we're going to see action on that in a meaningful way while we still have the next few years of the Biden administration. And then it all comes back to procurement inclusion. We pay taxes. You pay taxes right here in Salt Lake, across the state. You pay federal taxes. You should have the ability to be a part of the procurement system here without the fear of losing your contract or being discriminated or denied because you're LGBTQ. And so now in over 30 communities and states across the country, we have worked with affiliate chambers to pass legislation, to get executive orders passed that are adding LGBTQ businesses to the diverse supply chains of state and local entities. Those are some of our advocacy issues. Some of them make sense and seem obvious, others might not, but it's a part of ensuring that every decision maker knows that we are a lot more than one-dimensional people. Being LGBTQ+ is a part of who we are. It's not all of who we are. We're also business people. We're concerned about our economy, we're concerned about our communities, and we need to start thinking about things in that context. Yes, it's human nature, that which threatens us most. That's what we're most concerned with in that moment. But when people understand that we are a part of those same discussions, when we're building bridges with the African American community, the women's community, the disability community, when our issues are their issues, and their issues are our issues. We find some things that are incredibly important. I should have forwarded this a minute ago, but this just shows the places across the country where we've had wins. And it's not just all blue states, it's across the country. And yes, it's some blue dots in big red areas. By the way, you have one here. Let's talk about how we get it across the finish line in Salt Lake City. Because the reality is Senator Paul Wellstone said, we all do better when we all do better. When African Americans do better, we do better. When Hispanics do better, we do better. When people with disabilities do better, we do better. When women do better, we do better. And when we do better, they do better. So I end up with that. When we all do better, we all do better. And we can by looking at maybe just a different lens on advocacy. Yes, it's important that what is most at risk is top priority. But how do we continue to involve other people in our work? How do we continue to build bridges? And why is it important? Because you can't have equality if you don't have equity. We can't have equity if we're not out there fighting for it every single day. So with that said, thank you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your being here and allowing me to just pontificate for a few minutes about what we do at NGLCC and why you're a part of it and why it's so important that each and every one of you stand up, that you be counted, and you be counted as business people that employ people. There are 17,000 businesses in this state, 22,000 families that rely on you because of what you do. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions if we have just 1 or 2 minutes?
Mike's on.
I think we've got one right here.
Actually, it's just like Peter Thiel, whatever the name is,
Yeah, that's a,
billionaire who's a Trumper and gay.
I think that's an excellent question. I mean, it's the circular firing squad mentality. And I think you don't, Alan. You move beyond him. You can't reason with the unreasonable. My mother taught me that as a 7-year-old. So you figure out where you're going to put your energy, and that's where you put it. And Peter Thiel is not someone that I would consider to be, while he is a business person, he's not someone that has our best interests at heart. And I think we just have to work around him rather than trying to work with him or through him.
I think my voice carries.
Oh, look, get up and move.
I'd actually like to hear some of your suggestions. So I'm from Logan up north, more of a rural community, kind of getting, started with trying to find who are business owners. Just some suggestions on how we can gain strength in that type of a community.
I think that's such a critical component. And frankly, one of the reasons I love being here, I mean, I grew up in Wyoming. I think that the saying is you can take the boy out of Wyoming, but you can't take the Wyoming out of the boy. And I'm dedicated to ensuring that more rural communities, because we're everywhere. And I think about when I was a kid, my role models were, the guys that went to the Blue Oyster Bar and the Police Academy movies. Those aren't role models. We need role models. And I think just by being visible, it's important. And back to my earlier comment, who are the people in your community that are employing people, that are a part of the vibrant base of the business community? It's such a difficult thing too, because we worry about losing our livelihood. But the more that people understand that you're connected, not just across town or across the state, but there are people that support you across this country and across this globe. And I think educating the people in your community first on that is really important, and then introducing them to this amazing network of businesses and people across your state, across the country, and across the globe really is empowering.
We are standing between lunch, but it's
Maybe last one.
absolutely, and it's Roberto, so I mean,
Don't make it difficult, Roberto.
no telling what he's gonna say.
You mentioned something about allies being a big part of our success. How do you navigate when those allies have conflicts of morality? Like, how do you decipher which allies to partner with?
Well, I can speak for us. I can't speak for everybody. I think that's probably a decision that, if it's a business decision, that sort of thing that you're going to have to make. But if you're with me on Tuesday, you're against me on Wednesday, you're kind of with me on Thursday, we probably aren't going to get along. And, I know that may sound a little bit different than what I said about getting to the 60. I don't have to be friends with, I don't like everyone I work with. But sometimes you got to work with people you don't like to get a result you want. If you want sustainability, you want people that are advocate for you long term, you've got to find common ground, what matters to you, what matters to them, and you've got to put out your stakes in the ground on what are absolute lines not to cross. I think utilizing us as a pawn is a problem. And being with us when it makes smart financial sense, and that's the only reason, is a problem. And individuals, companies, organizations, they have to make that determination for themselves. But, if it smells funny, it's probably funny. And that's just something you gotta go into eyes wide open.
I didn't say no.
Chairperson's prerogative.
Microphone, there we go. To answer that question, I don't know if that was prompted by the reason we're in this building instead of where we were originally scheduled to be at all. Our board recently had a really, really good discussion on this because we were faced with that, where we had an ally who made some public statements that were harmful to our community. And part of that, I think, happened from ignorance, and they were coming under the attack that most of us have experienced much of our life since we've been out of the closet, and they got scared. Is that justifiable? Well, how many of us have, just the other day, I forget where we were, but we had to introduce my fiance as my friend because we were afraid, this is my roommate. I don't do that very often, but this was a situation where it needed to happen. And so we have to look at, where does the allies' heart lay, like Justin said. I think sometimes in our community, we're too quick to condemn allies who make mistakes, and if we keep doing that, we aren't going to have allies very soon. Now, there is a time when they screw up so badly, and they clearly did not have our best interests at heart, that they need to just get rid of them. But I think that if we participate too much in cancel culture, we can end up alienating people who would help us if we gave them the opportunity for more education. And again, I know that people should be going out and educating themselves, and that's not our job. And if you don't feel like that is your job, or you have the energy or the capability to go out and educate someone, that's fine. But there's those of us in the community who have chosen, for better or for worse, to stick our necks out there on the chopping block and do that educating. Please connect us with them, and we will try to help them understand how best to help the community, the ways in which they have accidentally or intentionally hurt the community. And I think that's kind of where my advice on that topic is, when you get to a point where you are able to stand up and educate, that you do so. We need the allies. We can't, there aren't enough of us yet. But at the same time, we need strong leaders within our community as well, who are willing to go out and have those conversations. And don't get me wrong, they suck. There's times, I've had to go before our judicial council here in Utah and talk to them about how judges have screwed up. It's okay, don't bark. And we're, as leadership, we're going to go talk to, hey, you're okay. Just because you see another dog. And so, does that answer your question, Roberto, between the two of us? That
I would just close by saying, if I did not get involved in conversations that were difficult partners, I'd have 4, not 400. Everybody steps in it at some point. It's about how they recover, what you do to educate, and then whether or not they're going to use that as an opportunity to better themselves and their organization. Last thing I want to say is I want to congratulate this organization. Michael, notwithstanding the amazing work that you did as just an amazing leader, the fact that you have 3 strong women that have led this organization, you have Liz, you have Samantha as chair, you have Tracy as chair emeritus, I commend you on that. It is absolutely something that should be celebrated, and thank you all for your work and your partnership as an affiliate, and just really thankful.
Thank you, Justin. So back in 2017, when I took over as chairwoman, the first thing that I did was join the NGLCC, and I couldn't be more proud of our relationship and our friendship. Thank you so much for coming out to Utah. I know it's not easy to travel these days, and you've been doing a heck of a lot of it, so I really, really appreciate that. Was that just awesome? Say yes. Oh. And to echo what Samantha said, we had a phenomenal board discussion, and I was so happy. After that, we had both sides. We talked religion, we talked diversity, we talked all of the hard things, and we made it through that conversation. And kudos to you, Samantha. And Liz is in the back of the room, and I think are we ready for lunch? I'm hungry. We're ready. Okay, so we're gonna break for lunch at least until 1 o'clock. We'll see you back here. Thanks.
For anyone who hasn't been over where the exhibits are, that's where we're serving lunch as well. And down the hall and to your right. Yeah.
I got like 8 minutes left on.
Battery?
On this.